Thank you very much, Melinda. I would like to thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to meet you and to listen to this wonderful presentations that were before me. And now when I am listening to you, Melinda, and I know that we had a little talk preparing for this meeting, when I heard the question, how we can go forward, it happened now for me like a moment of insight that actually what I'm going to speak about is how to go back and not how to go forward, and to connect to the main ideas that brought the feminist movement and organizations in the past to struggle and to put pressure in order to get this resolution from the United Nations and to make the international arena admit and understand that we women experience the armed conflicts and the conflicts in general in a different way, that we are living the circumstances in a different way because of our gender roles that and because of our status in the society, because of our exclusion from decision making cycles. And we made the United Nations also understand, and the international arena understand, that our security is not only it matters, and not only national security matters, and that security for women is not only depending on the national security of the states we are living in, but also it is economical, it's health-wise, it's against or it's security from violence, gender-based violence, of security from sexual harassment, and it is depending on the decisions that our governments are deciding every day and affecting our lives every moment, and not only we are affected by the situation in confronting the enemies on a national issue. Why I'm saying this? Because I think that we moved away very much from that resolution. And suddenly I am looking at the situation and feeling that we are dealing with this resolution that have a very specific context. We took it out of the context and we are dealing with it as if it is CEDAW, or it is the Convention for Eliminating All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, or as part of the general discussion about gender and equality and etc. Why I'm saying this? Because when I think about it, we as women, as feminists, we always struggle to change the balance of power and to change the hierarchy and the patriarchy that exists in this world. And when we start speaking about gender mainstreaming, actually, what are we saying? We are accepting the hierarchy, the patriarchy, but we want to do gender mainstreaming inside that system. I'm personally working against the system. I want to change the system. I want to reconstruct the system in a way that to create security and peace. And I believe that this is what is wanted when, this is what we claimed when we, and I was part of that struggle to push for this resolution as women organizations. When, there's a very, very nice feminist writer, Moroccan feminist writer, who wrote what happened to Shahrazad when she traveled to the West. And I'm asking what happened to 1325 when he traveled to the East and came to Israel. And this is interesting because it is a very interesting comparison, you know. When Shahrazad went to the West, Shahrazad is supposed to be one of the earliest feminists, I think, who fought every night through a story in order to save hundreds and thousands of women of being killed. And she managed by using her wisdom, because she depended on telling stories, and to make the suspense in the right moment so that she can continue next night. She had wisdom, she was clever, and she actually was, she were willing to sacrifice herself for her sisters, the women. When she went to the West, suddenly she became a belly dancer and an exotic woman, and she was shifted into the main stereotypes about women. 1325 was supposed to be one step ahead, where we say we are claiming and demanding our security and peace, and we have a very clear say how we imagine peace and security, and it is not the model that is built by patriarchy and militarism. And that's why we want to participate. And that's why, because we experience the conflicts in a different way, we want to participate in the solution and in the rehabilitation and rebuilding society so that we can build it in a different way. That was the main idea. But when 1325 came to Israel, the first thing, we shifted away, for my regret, the feminist movement shifted away the word conflict out of the resolution. And suddenly we are dealing only with representation and protection from gender-based violence, protection from occupation and militarization almost is not mentioned, because then we will be challenging the consensus that is existing inside Israel. When we are talking about representation, we are talking about representation not only in the civil life inside Israel. 1325 is about participation in conflict resolution, in negotiations, and in the struggle against occupation and armed conflict, and in the struggle against racism. And if the feminist movement in Israel do not understand the relation between house demolishing for the Palestinian citizens of Israel and evacuation of Palestinians from Area C under the in the occupied territories, and the racism, and is not willing to put it on the agenda forward as part of the implementation of 1325 and nationalization of 1325 in Israel, then we are missing the point here. Then we are supposed to start back to reclaim 1325 into the main resource that it started by the feminist idea of building a different world that exists with peace and security the way we perceive it, not the way the patriarchy and military perceive it. So this is why I believe today that we want to reclaim 1325. It's true that Israel was maybe the first, if I'm not wrong, the first country in the world that legislated a law that is in the spirit and in the idea of 1325, but it was mainly about representation, and it was, and I have to say that it is not implemented, even the law, till now fully, and we the feminist movement is still struggling for that. But there is no national plan, for example. Sometimes it sounds very strange to be one of the latest maybe countries in the world or states in the world that is still living in an armed conflict and yet do not have a national plan for 1325. One of the demands next week, I initiated with the, of course, with Women Waging Peace and Eetach מעכי, but especially in the parliament, I have the right to ask for a special day, and we are celebrating a special day of 20 years of 1325 in the Knesset, and it's very maybe part of you saw me during the meeting. I was like speaking a little bit as usual, very anxious about something, but you couldn't hear. I was trying to ask for a permission to hold a meeting in the Knesset, and I asked for a meeting about security for Israeli women. And in the Knesset, they sent me asking, what do you mean by security? You mean from violence? You mean national security? You mean, what do you mean? And I was again asking myself, you see, we still have a lot to do in order to make people understand what do we mean when we say security. Even in the Knesset, they did not, and of course they got scared that I want to deal with, you know, security from the national perspective of security. I think that when we are not able to practice our participation and representation in the official way, we should go back to base one in feminist organizing, is to do it in the public sphere, to do it on a grassroots representation and participation, and to use our activism in order to put pressure and to change the equation. That's what we've done for many years till now. And for my regret, although some nice breeze is coming from the United States in the last 2 days, 3 days, but for my regret, in our situation, we are still stuck in the bad 4, 10, 15 years of very right-wing, anti-human rights approach, anti-democratic approach in Israel. And that's why we are mostly needed now as women who need to fight for human rights. There is no way that we can think about human rights, about women's rights, when human rights are not guaranteed. We are part of that system of human rights. We are part of this, I'm looking for the word in English. Anyway, I think you understood what I'm saying. There is no women's rights without human rights. There is no women's rights an anti-democratic atmosphere. And that's why if we are looking for security, for peace, women organizations or activists cannot stand aside and think that we only need to ask for ourselves, our rights. We need to make the whole political system our problem. We need to see that the hierarchy and military and racism, all of them are part of the obstacles and part of the barriers which are built in front of us in order to guarantee our rights by the 1325. Now, I believe a society cannot live a normal life as long as it is in a war or a armed conflict situation. Even if you are living on the occupier side, if you are living on the very strong side of the equation and the most militarized society and have the ability to have the best army, you will always, even in that situation, suffer from that equation, especially we as women. There is need to speak about the existing militarized discourse. I always did not understand, and I was attacked many times and criticized for this position that I'm taking. I cannot understand those who are asking for equality in the army, meaning women should be equal in their ability to serve in the army. We are not talking here about Switzerland or I don't know. We are talking about a situation of armed conflict. I want to see the women in an equal situation to participate in negotiations. But again, we need to ask, who are those women who are going to participate in this? Because for my regret, you can look at our women, at most of the women who are in the government and probably will be asked to be in the negotiations if it's going to happen very soon, which is not. There are some of those ministers, women ministers, that I really, one of my nightmares if they are going to be on the negotiations. So a lot of questions are in front of us, but I believe that I still remember, even with women waging peace, that I support them in their work, but I argue with them a lot. I think that whenever you start a step and you will start to be challenged every day by those questions, and I want to finish with saying again, what we need today is, when we are thinking how to go forward, is to look back to where we started the idea of 1325, to look back to what we believed in and put in this resolution as women organizations, as a feminist movement, as peace movement. And we need to reclaim the ideas of 1325 and think about not gender mainstreaming, but changing the whole system.